Ho, 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 ho. Ladies, gentlemen, gamers, and fellow refugee Overwatch players. Welcome back. So, I have finally played Marvel Rivals. This is not something I would have expected to say this early on. I would have expected to say this, honestly, a little bit after Marvel Rivals actually fully released, because it's not out yet. I played Zabita. So, a little history about Marvel, myself, and how I feel about the game, my impressions of it, what I thought about it, and the whole shebang, the whole sheboinky, if you would. So, my history with Marvel. Excuse me. Obviously, everyone here knows I'm a gamer. I play games, I stream games live at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel. But many of you don't know that I also am a frequenter of comics. Now, do I read them? No, not really. Do I like the stories? Yes. Do I watch all the visual stuff? Pretty much. I don't like reading. I can't read. But I do like watching the pretty pictures on the screen. But aside from that, I do look up the wikis and I do see other people talk about the readings, so I'm actually pretty familiar with Marvel. I would like to say I'm more familiar with Marvel than the common layman, although in common times now, I don't know if that's true anymore, because obviously the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe has not only rebirthed interest in comics, but kind of expanded it to a modern view. But I'm a very big Marvel fan. You know, my favorite heroes are the Hulk, because he's so strong, Matthew Malloy of the X-Men, because he's probably one of the most powerful, Franklin Richards, Reed Richards, Fantastic Four people, Doctor Doom is another one that's also pretty recent, and we'll talk about Doom a little bit with Marvel Rivals, but I'm a pretty big Marvel fan, and I know a lot of their story, a lot of their lore, past just the normie cinematic universe. So, when I heard that Marvel was making a game, I got a little scared. And what's the main reason for this? Typically, Marvel games, or games produced with the Marvel cast, aside from some exceptions like Spider-Man on the PlayStation, they typically don't do very well. They actually do pretty badly. Now, that's not to say all of them are bad. You know, I hear Marvel Snap is pretty good. It's a little different, but it's good. Some of the Spider-Man games are really good, some of them not so much. But there's a lot of Marvel games, like the Marvel Avengers game, that pretty much came out and it flopped. Like, it wasn't good at all, and they tried to keep resuscitating it, they tried to keep pumping it, but it just didn't live. So, in terms of the gaming space, Marvel has seen some limited success. Not like the movies, which have seen grand success, but I'm a pretty big Marvel fan, so when I heard they're making a Overwatch-style game, I was a little concerned. And honestly, I wasn't excited. I was like, oh boy, this is going to be stupid, this is going to be dumb, this is going to be whatever, which is again why I was expecting to make this video and to play it more so after the game fully released. But I saw how popular it was, and I wanted to give my viewers a treat over at my Twitch channel, so I was like, you know what? Let me try and get a code, of which was very hard to get, but I liked the way they did it. You had to watch for an hour on Twitch, and then you had to fight like a pack of wild fucking hyenas over the codes, which released every day at 8 p.m. my time, EST. And for a couple days I couldn't get it because I was too late. Even by 8:20 all the codes were out. So the game was pretty popular, but before I even played the game, before I even saw anything, I was like, okay, this game is probably going to die. It's probably going to be just a carbon copy. It's not going to be that good. It's not going to have quality. I was basically not giving it the benefit of the doubt. And I will be straight up honest, I was completely wrong. I'm going to pull the rug right from under us in the beginning here. I really, really liked my time with Marvel Rivals. So there's the little Houdini hat trick out of the bag. I really enjoyed it. So when I first played it, here's what I noticed. And this isn't to say the game isn't without its faults, right? But some of them are a little contingent and biased towards my certain situation. Some of them are just faults of the beta, but you know, these things should get ironed out. But overall, it was a pretty positive experience, and let me explain why. Going into it, I was astounded. I thought a lot of these characters wouldn't be good. I thought they wouldn't be accurate to their lore. I thought they wouldn't be accurate to comics. I thought they would just kind of hodgepodge their kit together and sort of call it a day. A lot of their kits, even from the naming conventions alone, show that there is a respect here and there is a value towards the actual source material. And the game does something that I really much enjoy. And I'll give you an example. A lot of people aren't too familiar with Venom. Now, obviously, they might be familiar with Tom Hardy's Venom. I think his name is Tom Hardy. The guy who did Venom recently, that's kind of separate from Spider-Man. that's more of an anti-villain. But, that Venom, the MCU Venom, Marvel Cinematic Universe, that Venom is a lot different from comic book Venom. And this is another, this is a little off topic here, not really related to Marvel Rivals, but the biggest problem I have with comics is they tend to get a little too ridiculous. Like, it gets to the point where comics have been around since like the 80s. They've been around for a long time. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, they created a lot of these shits. And they're really old men. And Stan Lee obviously passed away, rest in peace. But these comics have gone on for a while, so it gets to the point where they keep using the characters because the characters are so popular. Eventually, they do add more and more. They do add new ones, but you're never going to lose Spider-Man, the Hulk, Iron Man, and all these other mainstay people, Captain America. They're always going to come back. And their stories have gone so long in terms of running that at some point or another, every person who has a comic book and lasts long enough will either become the villain, they'll become the hero, they'll become the most powerful in the universe. They'll basically become anything and almost everything all of the time. But anyway, this is where there's a lot of source material they have to go off of. And for Venom specifically, I believe it's his passive, one of his passives, that it's called like Touch of Clintar. And for those of you who don't know, that's really related to a lot of the symbiotes and a lot of their lore. Now, this isn't going to be a lore dump. This isn't going to be like a history lesson in Venom or any other comic book character, even though I really could do that, especially for the Hulk. It goes to show you that they actually do value a lot of the source material, and they actually know it. And anything that's going to succeed that's an adaptation, or you're taking something and you're transforming it into something else, if there's no respect for the source material, a lot of the time it's not good and it fails. The Halo, what is it called? Silver timeline or whatever the fuck. Like, basically people who don't have any respect. A lot of the Star Wars stuff is doing that now too, by the way. But even from the passives and even from the interactions, especially with some of the skins too, we have Worldbreaker Hulk in this beta. There's probably going to be way more when the game fully releases, which I hope is free. I don't know if it's free, but I really hope it is. But there's a lot of respect for the lore. There's a lot of respect for the stories of the characters, and they're very accurate, which is already surprising to me. And it's not like intrusive where if you don't know the character, you're going to be confused. Sometimes that's the case, but they do keep it, I don't want to say too low-key. Again, it's with the off interactions here and there. Not everything is going to be, hey, you need to know the full lore, but again, there's a lot of respect for it, and I appreciate that. So, first thing I went in to the game with was low expectations, and those got shattered, mostly from the gameplay. I've played every single hero that was available during the beta, including Thor and Jeff. And what do I think? This game does something that a lot of other companies do. They don't want to admit it, they don't want to say it, but this is one of the best things to do, even though sometimes it's frowned upon. They basically took bits and pieces, because let's be real, they copied Overwatch. But that's not bad. They took bits and pieces from other, I don't even know what you fucking call Overwatch, like 6v6, 5v5 arenas, I don't even know. But they took the best parts of Overwatch, they slammed them together in terms of character kits and kind of how the game plays, and they just made it better. Like, that's the best way to summarize this. A lot of the characters kits, when I was playing them, I could relate them to Overwatch characters, and there's actually some other characters they're probably related to in other games similar, like Paladins, but I never played Paladins, so I wouldn't know. But basically, these people are like a mix of Reinhardt and Sigma, and this person and that person, and you basically mix and match them, and you make them good. Now, the biggest thing I think that's a positive for Marvel Rivals, and again, this could be specific to the beta, right? As with a couple other things I'm going to say, is the characters are simple, they're fun, and obviously you have your high skill cap characters, sort of like Spider-Man, sort of like Black Panther, but they're not the same way as, let's just say, someone like Genji, right? Both Spider-Man and Black Panther, more Black Panther than anything, let's be real. He's more like Genji. However, it's not like Genji from Overwatch in the literal sense where it's as hard. It's actually easier. They give you a lot more tools than they do in Overwatch, and it really makes it a lot better. Black Panther has resets that you don't need to kill for, so inherently that makes the character easier. Now, it's a different type of game. Another way they're somewhat better, and this is going to be a lot of comparison between Overwatch, because that's its main competitor, let's be real. Overwatch is the #1 game in this genre. And hopefully Marvel Rivals displaces it, but we're going to see if it is. And I'll talk about that at the end. But this is where one thing it has above Overwatch, which I don't know how Overwatch gets away with, but the game is third person, and I think that helps it so much. Now, in terms of feeling, the game feels pretty good. There's sometimes where it feels a little wonky, and sometimes the game feels a little slow in terms of movement. I don't want to say it's not snappy, it is. But there's some points in the game where if you're playing a tank and you're moving, like if you're playing Groot has no movement abilities. You gotta walk your ass all the way to the point from spawn. Sometimes it feels like, wow, I'm just really fucking fat and slow. Now in the fight, you want to feel that, that's good. Moving from spawn to the point, that's kind of ass. However, there's other times where there's like a little stairway, right? There's like a little elevated platform. And I'm trying to jump on it with someone like, let's just say Venom, who's like a giant hulking brute. And there's sometimes where the jump, I wouldn't mantle, I wouldn't anything. And the fact that there's no mantle, although I did go mental over this. The fact that there's no mantle kind of pissed me off. Where it's like, it's literally at my knee and I can't jump over it because the jump is just missing just by a little bit. That was a little thing, but in terms of how the game plays, it plays extremely, extremely well. The only thing is, and again, this is more biased towards my specific interaction, was I did have a little bit of performance issues. The game was a little bit taxing on my performance, but that could also be my PC just starting to die because I've had it for so many years with so many tabs open, as everyone likes to point out. But hopefully you guys won't see that because hopefully I'll put Marvel Rivals gameplay over this. But essentially, the game for the most part feels good. The gameplay feels good, and there's certain characters with a lot of movement abilities. Movement is very, very apparent in this game. Like, you have characters who can permanently fly. Storm, Iron Man. They're just always flying. They have no cooldown. They can go wherever they want up to sky limits. And another little tidbit here of negativity. Some of the skyboxes are really kind of short, and obviously because they have Iron Man and Storm in mind, or any aerial character they add, but sometimes it really feels like there's some buildings you could go on top of where you're like, why am I able to go on top of this? This is really high. And then there's other points where it's like, oh, this is really low, I should be able to fly over it, and you can't because there's an invisible skybox. So it's a little weird feeling sometimes, but overall it's really surprising, it's really good. Now there's two places I could take this from here. I could talk about the maps, and I could talk about balance. And I'll go to balance, and then I'll go to the maps. So essentially balance. I just said there's at least two right now flying characters that permanently fly. Does that make the game unbalanced? No. I think the balance is actually pretty good. I think there are some outliers, but the more I played the game, the more this opinion evolved. And that's another thing I want to say that's a positive. The more I played the game, the better it got. But essentially, it's not that bad playing flying characters because they don't do that much damage. Iron Man, when I first played him, I was shocked he could fly permanently, and he's basically the better Pharah in some ways. He doesn't output as much DPS as Pharah in certain scenarios, but he has certain scenarios where he does. And this goes back to my thing about the gameplay, where it's very, very broad and casual friendly. Again, aside from Black Panther and Spider-Man, and I'm kind of, webbing all over here, similar to Spider-Man. I'm going from one point back to another, but similar to Spider-Man and Black Panther, most of the characters are easy to understand at a base level, but some of them have high skill caps. Most of them have decent skill caps, some of them have high, but it's a very casual, friendly game that you could get more in-depth to, and you could get a lot more into skill-wise, is the best way to say it. The characters are very, very appealing to people who are not that good, which is why people like me, when we went in there, we just ate these people alive, but they didn't all the time quit. There were some games where I had quitters, but they didn't all the time quit, and that's because the game is somewhat balanced character-wise. Again, there are exceptions, but those could be ironed out with buffs and nerfs if they don't go too crazy. But Iron Man and Storm, for instance, right? They both fly. Storm and Iron Man, they could end up doing a lot of damage if left unchecked, but there are hit scan characters in this game, and there is ways to kill them. Like Iron Man, again, he's slow. Iron Man and Storm, they're very slow. They don't move fast. Now, granted, they have things to help them in certain situations, sure, but overall, the game doesn't feel overtly unfair to where you haven't earned it. For instance, Spider-Man has a very easy one-shot combo, but you have to have everything up. Now, this brings me into another thing. One thing unique to this game that I haven't seen really a lot, but one thing that's super, super cool that I'm really glad they included was combos. If you choose certain characters that know each other in the lore or are related in some way, either Marvel Rivals makes it up or most of the time it's lore related, which again, respect to the lore, they have special combos that give them special abilities that are really, really good. Now, these abilities sometimes range from absolutely useless to sometimes really, really OP broken. Prime example, Magneto. Magneto is ridiculously strong with his combo with his daughter, Scarlet Witch, which is another thing. Again, I don't want to get too much into balance, but the balance is pretty well with some outliers like Magneto. But again, they could fix these things. But the only thing I'm kind of sad about is in the combo system, you have to have certain people have a combo. So again, let's just say Venom and Spider-Man. Venom gives Spider-Man part of the symbiote, and Spider-Man gains a new move that's pretty good that helps with a one-shot combo he does. However, Venom doesn't really gain anything. The person giving these combos doesn't gain anything. Sometimes it's duality, sometimes, you know, it benefits both, it's mutualistic. For instance, Black Panther and Magic. I never did this combo myself, so I could be wrong, but as far as I understand, their combo is they get like a ring that can teleport them. Now, maybe only one of them could do it, but it can technically be used on both, but I don't really know because I didn't actually play that combo. Or I didn't see it either. But in general, I really think that's a little bit of a short-sighting of the combo system. It's where only one party or one direction kind of gets the benefit, the other doesn't. Now, that might be a little bit of a nightmare to balance, because again, even though I think they have the balance pretty good, it's a little unbalanced, which I think is fun. My general mantra to balance is things cannot be perfectly balanced because it's boring. You need to have some things that are slightly broken. Now, not domineering, not like Magneto's fucking special ability combo he gets, but you need to have things that are a little bit unbalanced to make things a little bit more fun. And I think that game is hitting a really, really specific spot that's really good and really hard to hit. They're doing a lot of things right. They're respecting the lore, the gameplay is great, the interactions with the characters are really good, sometimes bordering on OP, and they're taking the best parts of other games and other kits where if you come from Overwatch or Paladins, you'll probably find things familiar here, but the way in which they do them is very surprising, and I was kind of like, wow, this is allowed? But the more you play, the more you're like, okay, I guess it's allowed because everything else is allowed too, which I think is a great way that they're tackling it. You know, this thing seems kind of strong. Oh, but that thing's kind of strong too. Okay, cool. Now again, that could lead to power creep very easily and a lot of unfun, but it's weird that they haven't met that yet, at least from what I've played. I didn't think like something was crazy OP that I couldn't counter, and there obviously are counters in the game. But one of the other things I have to talk about is maps. Now, obviously, this is a beta. This is specific to the beta, but we only basically got like 3 maps. Now, there's a little bit of different game modes on there, and there's like a TDM game mode that I barely played at all. I mainly just played like quick play and ranked. But the 3 maps got old pretty quickly, and some of the maps are good, some of the maps are bad. They're decent, though. Like, the maps are whatever, but I think people who are saying they're getting tired of the game or they're getting kind of sick of it is because there's not as many maps. Now, the maps visually look great. One thing they also do, which again helps a lot of people, and it also respects the lore, in the loading screen for the map, you see a little slideshow that tells kind of like the lore of what's going on. Like, oh, Loki's in Asgard, he stole the throne, he wants to get fucked, but he also wants to do the fucking. And then you have the Master Weaver on the Spider-Man map in Shin Shibuya, and he's doing this, and his apprentice left. And it kind of gives you a little insight onto why what's happening in the map is happening. And it's really cool. I really, really respect like them creating their own little lore too. Is it anything crazy? No. Could you skip it and be fine? Yeah, but the fact that it's there and it doesn't seem like they fully half-assed it is a really, really positive thing. Now, one of the major things I want to get into about this game that really shocked me was when I played it more and improved. And I kind of talked about that already. But the more I played, because again, I played every character multiple times. The more I played, the more I noticed like, wow, some characters I thought were absolute ass, like Magneto. Right? Some characters I just didn't like. Now, I'm not going to like every character, but for the most part, I don't think I've ever found a game where I've seen this many characters, again, be generally appealing enough to where I can honestly say I hate very little of the characters. I can see myself playing most of the characters in this game because they're either not that hard to pick up or because they're just enjoyable to play. And at first I didn't believe this. The biggest example of this was Penny Parker. I hated Penny Parker. I thought she was ass. Now, that was because I didn't know how to use her. Now, maybe you could say it's because I didn't have a good game with her. That can also be the case. But in general, the more I played the game, the more I found out, hey, I can get a lot better at some of these heroes. Some of these heroes do have a learning curve. And then once I got better, I was like, wow, I'm having fun. And the main thing that I want to get through to this, to everyone watching this, is this game is fun. Now, again, how long will it last? Does it have longevity? I don't know. That really depends on them. They have a lot of source material to work for, or work with, right? They can take a lot of comic book characters. Now, how often they do it, that's really going to be the deciding factor. How they monetize the game, that's going to be another thing. But so far, from initial impressions, if they do it quick enough, if they do it well enough, if the game doesn't remain broken or too boring, I honestly see this being great. Now, will it get boring too fast? Again, it depends on the number of maps, it depends on the game modes, but I'm honestly shocked at how many characters I played. Like, again, Penny Parker. Didn't know her, didn't like her, kept playing her. Now I think she's pretty good. And they're all good at different things. They have their own little niches. Venom is a diver, Penny Parker's a defensive tank. There's all these different things. You got your tank, your healers, your DPS. Everything just works well because, again, they're stealing most of it from other games. But they're not just straight stealing it, they're taking it and they're improving it, which is amazing. Now, one of the only other negatives I have to say about balance-wise, at least, is there doesn't seem to be any sort of healers that really support diving. And this is kind of something I noticed. The healers are good, but a lot of the healers don't really have mobility, which is kind of fair. I guess it's a gameplay style choice, but it might become frustrating later. But even though dive is good, the main diver you have, in my opinion, is Venom. Hulk kind of dives too, and Hulk, sadly, even though being one of my favorite characters, kind of sucks the most. At least he's one of the hardest to do. He has his niche. He gains a lot of ult, but again, I don't want this to be purely about balance. But I did feel like there wasn't a lot to support diving in the game, and Doctor Strange fucking sucks dick. The two biggest tanks that probably suck the most, and not to say they're not good or you can't do good with them, but it's going to be really hard to compete with someone like Venom, for instance, is Doctor Strange and the Hulk. They fucking suck. But aside from Venom, who could kind of self-support himself and get in and get out, I wouldn't be surprised if Venom gets nerfed either. But a lot of the game doesn't really support dive, but again, that's more of a gameplay choice. Do they want to support certain styles of gameplay? You would think with the amount of characters that could dive, they might want to have some, like, you know, one or two healers that could, but it really depends. But again, these are things that could be changed with balance and kit reworks or just new characters coming out too. Because we don't know the full roster, the game's not fully out yet. But initial impressions, this game surprised the fuck out of me. It's fun, it's good, they respect a lot of the lore, the gameplay is surprisingly good, the characters are really, really fun. And it takes parts of different people's kits from other games you're familiar with, combines them, and makes you say, wow, I didn't think this could be done together, I didn't think this would be fair, but it somehow kind of is sometimes. And if it isn't, you're shitting on people or you're getting shit on, but not too badly. But it's just like a new breath of fresh air. Now granted, again, will this breath last long? I don't know. I hope it does, because competition is the best for all of us as the consumers. But I really hope this puts a fire under fucking Overwatch's ass and makes them get better and not offer us, you know, shitty green new ranked skin after we've waited for years with just gold. And then, hey, pay like $5, $10, $15 for new weapon skins you can never get. Like, God, that game is so fucking greedy. And I really hope Marvel Rivals isn't a cash grab, but I could definitely see it being a fun game you could get on with friends. And again, how do you appeal? How do you make a great game? You make it good for casuals. And gameplay-wise, it definitely is that. This game so far has surprised me. The future will only tell if it's gonna survive. I hope it does. I could see markings of it surviving. I don't know if it'll take down Overwatch, but I think it could be a great contender. But either way, that's pretty much my opinions of Marvel Rivals. I hope you all enjoyed. If you played it, tell me what you guys think. And please watch me at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel. Eee!